I'd like to open the public hearing for the Planning and Zoning for the Tuesday, September 27th, 2022 meeting. Our first thing is Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have some public hearings tonight. First off, 2, 4, 6. We have one commissioner missing, so I will seek Commissioner Carey for Commissioner Viteri. And our public hearing tonight, well, there's two of them. First, we will hear from our applicants, then we will hear from town staff, then we will hear from members of the public, first those in favor, and then those against or having questions or concerns, and then we will hear from commissioners. We have a public notice, so I'll ask the secretary to read the public notice.
To be published in the Journal Enquirer Thursday, September 15, 2022, and Thursday, September 22nd, 2022, South Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, September 27, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall to consider the following. Number 1, application 22-32P, Revolutions Bowling Outdoor Field Expansion, request for a special exception to table 4.1.1A, and site plan approval for an outdoor multi-purpose recreational field 24 feet by 400 feet to accommodate league play on 195 Governor's Highway, and site plan approval for an off-site parking lot to support such use on property located at 205 Governor's Highway I-Zone, continued from September 13, 2022. Number 2, application 22-32P, psychic readings by Lisa, request for a 5-year major home occupation on property located at 1747 John Fitch Boulevard, A40 zone. Number 3, application 22-30P, High Axiom, a Doosan company, request for site plan modification to add an access drive over property at 195 Governor's Highway I-Zone. Copies of the application are on file of the town clerk and/or planning department and online at https://www.southwindsor.ct.gov/planning department pages, planning and zoning commission applications. At this hearing, interesting persons may be heard and written comments by the public will be received by mail or email. Persons who may require an accommodation can contact staff Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at 860-644-2511, extension 2329. Bart Pasiconis, Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you very much. For members of the public, if you come up to speak, our sound system microphones work best if you're 3 to 6 inches away from the microphone. If you're too far away, it doesn't pick up too well. And if you're too close, it makes a lot of reverberation. So 3 to 6 inches is best. Okay, so at this time, I will call our first applicant, which is application 22-33P, Psychic Readings by Lisa. Is there someone here to represent this applicant? Please step forward. And for members of the public, if you come up to speak, we will have a sign-in sheet up there. If you could put your name and address. Make sure the microphone's on by pushing the button at the base of the microphone, and introduce yourself to the commission, please. You should have a red light on your mic. Yep, you're lit. Good, good.
Very good. 3 to 6 inches. I'm a surveyor. I should know 3 to 6 inches. So good evening. My name is Brian Florick, Florick Surveying LLC, located in Waterford, Connecticut. Tonight I'm here to represent Lisa Tan and her home occupancy request at 1747 John Fitch Boulevard. Lisa would like to open her home to do a home occupancy business. She has psychic abilities, and she wants to do a home occupancy business, one-on-one type of clientele where she books people by appointments only. It's a very minimal use type of situation. There's going to be one client at a time. It's not going to be a huge impact whatsoever to John Fitch Boulevard. We all know John Fitch Boulevard is a very commercial type of road anyway. So it's a very personable, small-scale business that she would like to operate out of her home. She's been doing these types of readings for about 30 years. She has and operates a business in West Hartford, and she would also like to do the same out of her home on John Fitch Boulevard. Her hours of operation would be 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And the business plan of hers is approximately 128 square feet of her home, or 6.9% of her home. We developed a site plan which has 2 parking spots, a handicap stall, and a regular parking space. The handicap stall was designed with ADA compliance taken into account. We also are going to provide a visual screening for the parking with trees, and then a handicap ramp entering an ADA compliant handicap ramp entering the front door of the house. She would also like to install a sign, a hooded down lighted sign in her front yard, which meets the zoning setbacks and requirements put forth by the town. And just to bring your attention to the plan, like I said, it's a relatively small, it's a very small business. It's almost like having a neighbor or a family member stop by the house. It's that minimal of a business. So you can see on the second sheet, I provided a floor plan of the house and the area that she wants to do the psychic readings. And I provided you guys with the business sign that she would like to place in her front yard.
Does that complete your presentation?
Yes, like I said, it's very straightforward, small
Okay.
home occupancy business. So
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. At this time, we'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Lipe.
Thank you. This is an application for a 5-year major home occupation for psychic reading business known as Psychic Readings by Lisa, 1747 John Fitch Boulevard in our A40 zone. Applicants proposing to see 3 to 5 clients per week, approximately 1 hour each, seeing 1 client at a time by appointment. Proposed hours are Monday through Friday, 8 through 5. The reasons for planning and zoning requiring home occupation approvals is that it's clearly secondary use to the building for dwelling purposes. Home occupation is compatible with other permitted residential uses in the residential district. Residential character of the dwelling and neighborhood are maintained and preserved. Residents have freedom from excessive noise, traffic nuisances, fire hazards, offensive orders, pollutants, and possible effects of commercial uses being conducted in residential areas. The performance criteria that we have are that a maximum of 25% of the floor area can be used for the occupation. I think it was indicated slightly under 7% is proposed with this application. No application can be visible from outside of the dwelling. No entrance or exit may be added solely for the occupation. No more than one non-resident employee is allowed. The occupation cannot create a volume of passenger or commercial traffic that's inconsistent with the normal level of traffic on the street. All parking needs are met on site, and the commission may require screening of additional parking from the street and from adjacent properties. The applicant did provide you a plot plan, does show a small parking area to accommodate 2 parking spaces, one of them being a handicap space. They are proposing some screening around the site. This site is serviced by a private well and a septic system. The applicant will work with the fire marshal and the building inspector to make sure that all applicable codes are met as relates to a business. 2 square foot signage is allowed by the regulations. I think you have a diagram with the sign proposed as well as their intention to light the sign. If this application is approved, the planning department has no further modifications to request. Again, it's a 5-year permit period, and at the end of that permit period, we'd send out a notice for the applicant to either renew or let us know the business is no longer going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'll ask our town engineer if he has any concerns about this application.
Thank you. I have no questions or concerns about this application.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I will open it up to the public. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Please step to the podium. Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak against or have questions or concerns they'd like addressed? Please step to the podium. Hearing and seeing none, I'll go to commissioners. Commissioner Bernstein.
No questions.
Commissioner Cavagnaro.
Thank you. I have a few questions. I want to go over some special regulations on 7-14 and 7-15 for major home occupations. I'm just curious, how many employees? Is it just one employee, the owner? Yes. Okay. I also am curious.
Excuse me, if you could just come to the microphone so our sound system can pick up any response.
Yes.
Awesome.
One employee.
Awesome. A few more questions.
Sure.
I'm just curious. I've never been to a psych reading, so I just want to get clarification. There's no odors, right? Odors. It's within the special regulations on 7-15.
Odors?
Yeah, odors.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No. Thank you. I'm sorry. I just didn't understand.
No, it's okay. One last question. I noticed on Google Street View that there is a trailer on the driveway. Is that going to be relocated somewhere else on the lot? I just don't want to. I want to make awesome. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't covering the parking spaces.
Yes.
Awesome. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Foley?
I have no comment.
Commissioner Wagner?
No questions.
Commissioner Dexter?
Just a quick one, and maybe this is for Jeff or the applicant, but if you're going north on Route 5 and you want to take a left into your gravel drive there's no median, is there?
There's a median.
There's a median
There's
there.
no crossing Route 5 there.
So you can't take a left?
Right.
Okay, so you can only come south
Correct.
and pull in. That's all he needed. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner LeBlanc?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Commissioner Carey?
So, the regulation, is it 2 square foot sign?
3 to 6 inches, please.
Sorry. Is the regulation 2 square feet? But on the drawing,
Wait, I'm sorry, 12 square feet.
oh, 12 square.
I apologize, 12 square feet.
Okay, never mind. I don't have any questions.
So 2 didn't sound right.
All set?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just had a couple things. We are friendly with our home occupants. I just want to make sure that the hours you're submitting are what would actually be happening. And I personally think you're pigeonholing yourself a little bit too tight. Myself, I would be willing for you to go 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. so your clientele doesn't have to show up when they should be at work. Just
Well, thank you, and we'll certainly take that into account. Thank you.
well, this has to be decided here because once we approve this, we're going to approve it with certain hours. And I just want to make sure your hours, like if you wanted to do also 8 to like 12 on Saturday, that could be an option also. You look like a very minimum intensive use to us, to the public. So I'm suggesting this, if you want those hours, to just change it now, because once we approve this, we're gonna expect you to respect the hours that you really want. Okay, so I want to make sure that you're good with it. And please step forward to the microphone.
Yes, actually, I would actually refer that the hours be changed up a bit because a lot of my clients do come after work or before.
Okay, so if you even wanted to go like 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and like 8 to 12 or 8 to 1 on Saturday, due to the light use that we're expecting, I wouldn't have a problem with it, and I could ask the other
I'd rather,
commissioners once you decide on what your hours.
I'd rather be open later on the weekends if I could,
What time?
till 8.
On Saturdays? So if you wanted, what, 8 to 8 on Saturday?
Yes,
Okay, so 8 to 8, Monday through Saturday.
yes.
Okay. That's part of your proposal now. Yeah, please, if you could, identify yourself to the commission.
Sorry, my name is Lisa Tan,
Okay. And where do you reside? Just,
at the property, at
oh, okay, I
1747
apologize.
John.
I did hear that. Okay. So at this time, I'm just going to ask the commissioners, would you look upon those hours as favorable, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Saturday? Okay, and I'm seeing a lot of acceptance to that. So having that out of the way, I think I'm fine. I don't have anything else. So at this time, if you guys do not have anything else for your proposal, if the commissioners don't have any reason to keep the public hearing open, if staff doesn't have any reason, then we will close the public hearing at 7:35 p.m. and possibly act on this later tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Commissioners.
you're welcome. Our next application is application 22-32P, Revolutions Bowling Outdoor Field Expansion. I see we have somebody representing the applicant.
Good evening, this is Doug Nation from Revolutions.
Oh, okay. Excuse me 1 minute. Commissioner Foley is excusing himself from this application, so Commissioner Bernstein will be seated for Commissioner Foley for this application. Thank you.
I guess I'm here tonight to talk about the lights, and I've provided Michelle Lipe with the diagrams provided by the company Musco.
If you could, for the record, introduce yourself.
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, you
I'm
didn't
sorry,
hear me.
Commissioner Foley was chatting to me.
Okay, Doug Nation, Revolutions.
Thank you, Dave. Doug.
I guess tonight we're here to talk about the lighting of the field, and I provided Michelle Lipe the updated light diagram that was provided by Musco Lights.
Hopefully, they have it too.
Okay.
Anybody understand
Like
where
me
you're
to
looking
give
at?
my brief report, maybe it'll cover some of it.
Yeah, so are you, does that,
Well, that's what we were back here tonight for, is we were back here to, Michelle was waiting for the lighting diagram that I didn't have.
Right,
So
this-
we
well-
continued that for the lights.
yep, does that conclude your presentation at this time?
I believe at this time, I think we covered everything the last time, unless, I guess you'll be asking me questions if you
Okay.
have any. But yeah, it's just here tonight to let you know that I provided Michelle with the necessary stuff that she was looking for.
Okay, then at this time, I'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
Okay, so this was a continued public hearing. This is for the recreational lights, which we didn't have the information at our last hearing. That is by special exception. So for the record, I just want to read the regulations as they relate to the recreational lighting in the industrial zone. It says, all fixtures used for vent lighting will be fully shielded or designed to minimize uplight, spill light, and glare. The applicant can request to have higher than 35-foot poles. The poles being requested are 52 feet high poles, 4 of them. They have provided an isometric diagram. I have a very large one in the center of the table there, but you also were provided with smaller copies of the lighting diagram. We require that the poles be a minimum of 100 feet from any residential zone or property line. They're again greater than 100 feet. When you're reviewing the pole heights at 35-foot high poles, you're looking at the effects on existing uses in the area. You're looking at the conservation of surrounding property values and the character of the neighborhood. You're looking at the impact on the capacity of present proposed utilities, streets, drainage systems, sidewalks. You're looking at the suitability of the land proposed use and environmental impacts and the consistency with the goals of the town plan of conservation and development in the recreation master plan. So the lighting diagram that I gave you, probably the simpler of the two is the one that kind of just shows you a bunch of numbers on a square. Those would be the foot candles of the field. I think it ranges from, I think, a low of a 14-foot candle. I think the highest foot candle is somewhere around 55, 57. But again, that shows you the light spread on the field. The other one I think that's meaningful is you have another one that shows the light spread around the field, and that would be one that kind of shows the square and then the surrounding areas. If you can follow the numbers around the perimeter, that is the level of light spill beyond the field, and it's somewhere around a 3-foot candle around that whole perimeter area. So those are the lighting diagrams that have been submitted. I talked to the applicant about the hours because I think one of the things the commission may want to consider is putting on a max time that the lights can be on. I think already you have activities going on till midnight. I think in speaking with Doug that 10 or 10:30 seems to be about the time that the lights would be headed off. You might want to condition something along those lines if you're going to permit them. So again, we're talking about 4 52-foot tall poles, 2 on either side of the field, with the lighting levels that you have submitted.
Does that complete your report?
That is my report, yes.
Okay, I'll turn to our town engineer, see if he has any comments.
Thank you. I have no additional comments.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will open it up to the public. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Please step forward. Hearing in none. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this application or have questions or concerns? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, I'll turn to commissioners. Commissioner Carey.
I don't have anything.
Commissioner LeBlanc.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Dexter.
So lights off at 10 p.m. is acceptable, right? Mr. Nation?
I would think that most of our games.
Microphone, please.
Yes. I think right now, our volleyball, I don't know what the volleyball falls at. I'd have to look at our schedule. Perfect. I mean, 10:30 would probably be more, did you say 10?
I did.
Yeah, 10:30 would probably, we start shutting them down as soon as the games stop. No one plays after 10, but I don't want to be, 10:30 would be fine.
Okay.
I
At
mean,
least
we'll-
on the field. I mean, the parking lot
Yeah.
may still be lit, but.
Yeah, typically the games are over. I mean, I would think that we're going to come back sometime and talk about it. Like, we may want to do a fall festival out on the field, and maybe have something going on in the summertime. Not a lot because they're pretty much booked up, but maybe have a fall festival and just shut the lights off at 10:30. If you got 500 or 600 people, it's going to be kind of like 10:30. Kind of diet them down, turning one off at a time, but definitely dropping the light tone down.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wagner.
So I'm having a little trouble interpreting these diagrams. Where's the parking lot and where are the fields relative to these lighting pictures?
Parking lot is not a field.
The parking lot's an old drawing. It's
This
now
is
all
not the
grass.
Okay,
So these are your 4 lights, okay?
All right.
These are your levels.
okay,
Getting in here. This is the perimeter lighting that I was talking about. This is a 3-foot candle around the perimeter. That's the light spill.
Okay, so this is the lighting level, not more lights. It's just
No,
four.
this is the lighting level spill. That's
Okay,
correct. Yep.
okay.
All these lights are focused in on the field, but this is the ancillary light.
So if they're operating at night, what lighting is there in the parking lot?
There is some existing parking lot lighting out there.
Okay, so it's, okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cavagnero?
I have no comment.
Commissioner Bernstein?
Michelle, so I can assume that you've reviewed everything with respect to this particular topic on this application?
I mean, I reviewed what came in. I did speak with the vendor to make sure I understood what I was reviewing, but, yeah.
And
You know,
all-
again,
all
we
good
haven't
to you?
approved recreational lights like this anywhere in town, under this regulation on a private site. They've all been on public sites. So this is really the first time we've done this on a private site. So I don't have a lot of, you know, experience with having approved them there. I asked the gentleman, you know, from Main Street's perspective, you know, that's probably the closest residential area we have. You'll see light, lights aren't going to be in anybody's eyes. You're probably going to see light in a distance you didn't see before, just by virtue of them being tall lights, but it's not going to be in anybody's eyes. My experience with people is that when they haven't seen lights before and they show up, the lights are in their eyes. But they can still be full cutoff lights meeting all of the requirements. It's just lighting that wasn't there previously. So people may react to that lighting because it's going to be 52 feet tall.
Okay, I just wanted your perspective on it. That's it. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Doug, are these lights adjustable for height, or they're fixed at 52 feet?
No, and we had talked to Musco, because they design all ball fields, and Musco was very, you know, the lighting height, the guy was asking me, can you get them a little higher? And as they go higher, you can pinpoint where you want the lights on it. If you were to go lower, you're gonna get the lights outside of the area that you try to light. So there is a science to, yeah, I didn't believe it either until I talked to the guy. But as you go higher up, you're able to direct those lights on the field, and coming down, you'll end up, it will kind of bounce off the field and kind of, you know, dissipate outside of it. But as you look at all the property around it, there's no residential area, and there's no, I believe that we own the property all the way up around the whole entire field, so we're not infringing on anybody else. There's no neighbors that should be having any
Okay.
issues with it.
And what I'm seeing is we might be lighting, have some residual lighting going on to possibly like Governor's Highway, but there shouldn't be any really going out to like Route 5, correct?
Oh, absolutely not going out. You're gonna see the lights in the parking lot before you. I mean, as far as the glare, I don't believe there's any.
Of course, you'll be able to see them from
Yeah,
Route 5.
you'll be able to see 'em.
But the lighting, and it's on the big plans, it's not on the plans that we received, how much overflow lighting there is.
Yeah, so there's existing lighting already in the parking lot that's not accounted for with your foot candle spray, if you will. So there's existing lighting out there. And I would, you know, you want to recognize that right across the street is where Pride is going as well. So you're going to have lighting associated with the Pride gas station in that general area as well. So
Right.
you'll have lighting in that general
Yep,
area.
okay. Right now, and I don't know where it's coming from, but at night, there's like one central location of lighting. Do you know if that's from Doosan, or could that possibly be your volleyball fields? That seems to be casting out pretty far. You can see it visibly from very far away.
Could it be a spaceship?
It's not moving at all.
Are you talking about kind of like a night glare? Because I'm down where you are too, and I look up, and are you thinking like a night glare that's over that area?
No, from like when I'm
'Cause
going on Main.
I can't see any light from down on Main Street.
Yeah, when I'm on Main Street, I can I could see the lights in certain area. And I'm just wondering, and going, of course, on Governor's Highway, and I should have looked at it a little bit clearer, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to identify where those lights are coming from, because they seem to be pretty high. And do you have, what's your lighting on your volleyball
I think the only
fields?
light that you'd probably see, and correct me if I'm wrong, what the Doosan people are here, is the Doosan's got a hydrogen tank, and they light the hydrogen tank for the reasons that you'd probably want the hydrogen tank to be lit. That's about the same height as the lights for the lights for the poles, so.
Okay, and
maybe a
I've got to look
I
at
don't-
that
I don't
some
know
more,
what light
but-
what you're seeing out there. I wouldn't, maybe glares to the parking lot, but I don't see anything when I look up there.
Yeah, I don't recall it being anything that this commission approved.
Could it have made a difference when they cut a couple of trees down on the backside of the hill? Because there was a couple of trees that came down that they cleared out, and you could see a little
Okay,
more.
at this point, that's,
Okay.
seems like it's a separate application
Well, you're the one
than
that asked me.
yours.
Yeah, I
So,
was-
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, I think that completes any questions I had. Do you have anything else to offer?
Nope. No,
Okay.
nothing to offer.
Good. Commissioners, is there any reason to keep this public hearing open? Hearing and seeing none. Town staff, any reason to keep the public hearing open? Okay, then we will close this public hearing at 7:49 PM and this is on our agenda under new business later tonight. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I'll call our regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning for Tuesday, September 27th, 2022 to order. Our first item on our agenda is public participation. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda? This would be the time to step forward. Hearing and seeing none, I will go into our new business.
Can I bring up a point of order, or maybe just an explanation needed? We announced a public hearing on Hypaxium's application, but we actually only have it as part of our new business. So
Yeah, I
a
think
little
that may have-
explanation of what's going on here.
I think that got published erroneously. It does not require a public hearing, and it's just a site plan.
Thank you.
But it is something that if the public
Could speak
does
on it,
have any issues, we will allow some discussion on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I appreciate you mentioning that, Steve, thank you. So our first thing under new business is application 22-30P Hexion, a Doosan company. Is there anyone here to represent the application for 195 Governor's Highway? Please step forward. And feel free to correct my butchering of the company's name.
I'll drag it over to.
Just start dragging it this way.
Okay.
Start pulling it from there.
Okay, cool. Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you.
give us a second, and then,
Okay.
there we go. Okay, cool. Okay, good evening. My name is Tim Griffin. I'm a civil engineer with Lorero Engineering Associates, and I'm here on behalf of Hyaxium for this application. Just before I begin, just a quick note on the previous discussion. We did do a public hearing as part of the conservation review back on the 7th of this month. So we did technically have a public hearing. We did have some public questioning and stuff like that going on. And we did get approval of that conservation review. That was just for
Through
drainage and-
the inland wetlands,
It was in the wetlands, but they called it just a conservation because
Conservation Commission. Yep,
Right, there's no
okay.
wetlands on the property, but it was just for drainage and for erosion controls. So,
Okay.
yep. So the subject of tonight's application is a site modification for 195 Governor's Highway. So to begin, I'm just going to show the existing conditions survey. So this is a little bit unique. Basically, the project area is divided amongst three adjoining parcels. So it's 125, 155, and 195 Governor's Highway. But 195 is the property of the subject building. So basically, we're in the I industrial, the I zoning district, and this just shows the existing conditions of the site. So just real quick, the 125 parcel is a majority of the existing parking lot and the lawn area to the west. The 155 parcel is this narrow strip. It's basically the eastern drive aisle of the parking lot, and then that opens up into the rear of the property where there's some woodlands. And then the 195 parcel is the small amount of pavement directly adjacent to the building, as well as the Doosan building and then the eastern parking lot, which is off the view of the sheet. So just the existing conditions, we have, the existing conditions, we have a large asphalt parking lot, some small landscape islands, there's existing lighting out there, and there's an existing on-site drainage system within the parking lot. It has one outfall to the existing municipal storm sewer in Governor's Highway, and it has one outfall that goes to the west, which is presumed to go to the surface water west of the property. And this area here is currently lawn, and as I mentioned, this beyond here is woodland. And the project area that's a subject of this application is basically this portion of the asphalt parking lot, and then this portion of the existing lawn area. So going on to the site preparation plan, this basically shows the work that's going to be conducted in order to facilitate the new work. So we just have saw cutting and removal of existing pavement in this portion. We have the removal of 3 small landscape islands and 3 small trees. We have the removal of lawn area, as noted here, which will accommodate the future driveway. And then we just have some ancillary work, such as the removal of 3 dead trees, removal of fencing, removal of gates and gate openers, things of that nature. So this is the site plan. This would be the main, I think, focus of my discussion. I'll kind of focus on this more than the other plans, just due to the nature of the hearing here tonight. But this shows the proposed layout for the new work. So what we're proposing is, a lot of it is just basically we're adding new pavement within areas of existing impervious. Starting out here, this is just a straight up saw cut and repaving of a dilapidated section of the parking lot. This will be new pavement to fill in the 3 islands that were removed. This will be new pavement just to fill in the existing, it was just a hatched painted island and there was some light poles and bollards there, so that's going to be patched up. And then this area in gray, darker gray, is just seal coating of the existing pavement with the intent to obscure the existing pavement markings. And what's going on here is the existing parking is basically being transformed into 3 truck loading bays. So it's going to be restriped and delineated for the trucks to back into 3 new loading locations at the building. So just how this quantifies, in total, it's about 28,000 square feet of new pavement. and about 17,000 square feet of seal coating. And in addition to the work within the existing parking lot, we do have this new paved driveway in this portion of the property. So this paved portion is about 15,000 square feet of the total 28,000 square feet of pavement that we're doing on the job. So what this is just going to be a new access drive that connects this existing parking lot to this existing parking lot. We're going to have mechanically operated gates, slide gates on both ends, in order to do our best to address the landscaping requirements due to the nature of the site and the existing conditions. We added 3 new parking lot trees to replace the 3 trees that we're removing in these landscape islands. So those are 3 October Glory maples. I'll get into this later on the drainage plan, but we are incorporating a grass drainage basin, a depression in the lawn to capture stormwater. And over here, again, it's just going to be repaving. We're going to be also doing a small concrete pad for a cooling module equipment. And then also just ancillary gates, jersey barriers, fencing, light poles, things of that nature. And then the parking and the zoning information is presented on the table, how it's been calculated and how it's been provided. Right now, we're demonstrating conformance with all zoning regulations, with the exception of an existing nonconformity with an outbuilding that we're not even touching. And then we do have just the coverage on one of the parcels when it's standalone, but we are not making that nonconformity any worse. And then if you treat the 3 parcels as one single parcel, we're complying with all regulations. So basically, nothing that we're doing here is causing a nonconformity or worsening any existing nonconformity. So this is the grading and drainage plan. So within all the areas where we're either seal coating or patching the pavement, there's going to be no changes to existing drainage patterns, no changes to existing grades. We're just basically going to be repaving and grading in kind to what's there right now. This area here is a small area where we are going to be regrading just to kind of basically eliminate an existing drainage issue, get that drainage system up to snuff, and also just work better with the proposed reuse of this area to be the truck loading bays, where the trucks have to back up to a certain height and make sure that's all going to work well. So what we did here was we are going to be replacing an existing drain. Right now, it's just a small yard drain. We're going to replace it with an actual DOT catch basin. We're going to be taking an existing drain and just changing the frame and top to convert that to a manhole. And then we're going to be providing a new catch basin to capture stormwater, a new manhole to tie back into the existing trunk line, and then this ultimately discharges to the existing municipal system just as it does today. And in order to accommodate the conditions of approval that we received during the conservation review, we indicate 4-foot deep sumps on all new structures, and we're providing trap hoods on the outlet pipes of all structures that we're modifying, including, and we also added a outlet hood to the existing catch basin that we're not touching, but it's the one that discharges off-site, so that's just an added measure there that we've incorporated beyond the minimum conditions of approval. And then this is the grass drainage basin, as I mentioned before. So the purpose of this was to offset the increase in impervious by this new driveway. And the goal with that is to capture that runoff and make sure that we're not increasing the amount of runoff entering that parking lot drainage system in the proposed condition. So that basin, as you see there, the overall footprint is 11,000 square feet. During a 100-year storm, the maximum ponding depth is 1.3 feet. During smaller events, it'll be very shallow, maybe 6 inches of water or less. It's been sized to completely contain the 100-year storm. So even in a 100-year storm, that basin's not going to overtop. So it'll be completely capturing all the runoff from that area up to the 100-year storm. And it has a total capacity of 12,600 cubic feet. As I mentioned, we did incorporate the stormwater quality measures, and there's no changes to any other outfalls, or there's no addition of any new outfalls. We're just basically tying into the existing trunk line with our new drainage system. And the grading in the lawn area, it's been graded to pitch to that basin as much as possible. And then whatever does not enter that basin will just continue to sheet flow into the parking lot as it currently does today. Utilities, this is pretty limited. We're just going to be showing conduit for new light poles. We have 2 light poles here that were formerly inside the landscape islands that we're removing. So we're simply just picking those up, relocating them directly across from their current locations to the edge of the pavement. And then we're incorporating several other new light poles to illuminate the driveway area, as well as to illuminate the new loading area. And we also have 4 building-mounted fixtures. The site lighting is the exact same fixtures, the exact same pole height, the exact same everything, even the same lighting consultant and the same distributor as the poles and lights that are currently in place on the property. So we're matching those exactly in kind to a T. And we are just relocating a PIV for fire protection just to allow us to accommodate the new cooling module pad and the new grade wall. But that's just simply a relocation from the building connection. And just ancillary conduits for the gate controllers for the slide gates and communications for the intercom systems associated with those gates. This is the erosion sediment control plan. As I mentioned, we did already obtain approval on this from the Conservation and Wetlands Commission. It's basically just a standard, we have perimeter protection, we have compost socks along the down gradient portion of the work area. We're showing erosion matting on the steep slopes. We're showing designated stockpiling locations that are secured with silt fencing, and we're showing the silt stack inlet protection on all new or existing catch basins that are within the project area and will receive runoff from the work area. These are just some standard construction details. I won't go through these in detail, but it's basically just showing you the different components of the project and how they're going to be constructed. This is just an example of some of the equipment that we're going to be implementing. And this is the site lighting plan. So what we had the lighting consultant do was we had them analyze the entire work area and incorporate both existing and new poles into the analysis. And the intent here was to demonstrate that we don't have any exceedance over the property line of 1/4 of a foot candle in accordance with the regulations. And this plan demonstrates that we do not. So that's the site development plan set. I also can go through quickly the drainage analysis if that's something that you guys would like to see. I'm not sure if that's typically needed. No? Okay. 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 So, would you like to see it? No? Okay. Okay. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but that completes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we'll turn to our Director of Planning, Michelle Lipe.
Thank you. So this is a request for a site plan modification to construct driveway connection and new truck loading bays on the western side of the existing building at 195 Governor's Highway in the industrial zone. So there's minor modifications being proposed to the parking area on the western side of the building to accommodate a new truck loading pattern going into the building. This is a new project, my understanding, for Doosan that will be working in this area of the building. So the overhead doors will be added and internal modifications will be made inside of the building to accommodate the truck unloading. There's currently some existing outside storage in the area that this proposal is. They have been relocating that onto the eastern side of the site, kind of in the same location of the field that we saw with the previous application. My understanding is these are a product waiting to leave the site to be shipped off-site, so this is a temporary outside storage situation. But all the stuff on the western side will be relocated to the eastern side unless there's some additional storage on the western side I saw out there. I'm not sure if that's staying or not. Maybe the applicant can clarify that for us. The site is made up of 3 separate parcels. We do have a zoning analysis that kind of takes the 3 parcels and breaks the zoning down by the different uses. It does show the coverage collectively at 44%. We do allow up to 65% coverage. This site has changed over time from its parking perspective. It was at one time all offices and required parking as related to business office. Now it is primarily manufacturing what the space uses. So we do have a parking calculation breaking down that space that's currently being used and the number of spaces required. I think it's like 366 spaces. There is plenty of other space on site to add other parking when and if the need arises for other uses within the building. There is some new lighting being proposed. We do have the isometric diagram up there tonight. They are meeting full cutoff light fixtures both on the building and In the drive area, they have provided the isometric diagram in conformance with our requirements. There's no spillage beyond the property line of concern. There are no regular wetlands on the site. As represented, they did receive erosion sedimentation approval. The commission recommended a bond of $5,000 for the E&S measures and $5,000 for the installation of stormwater structures. The fire marshal has reviewed the site layout, and they have no comments on the plans. If this application is approved, the planning department has no modifications to request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll turn to our town engineer, Jeff Doolittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question on the proposed drainage. It would be helpful if you went back to that, please.
Yes, sir.
Great. So as I understand, the drainage, all the water from the new paved driveway will go into that detention basin, that small depression. And there is no outlet from that depression, so it's either going to infiltrate in the ground or evaporate. So my concern is that the top of the depression is about level with the parking lot. So in the event that depression fills up and overflows, it looks like it's going to overflow into the parking lot. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So if we had a storm that exceeded a 100-year storm, then yes, it would just basically overflow into the parking lot and just run off into the parking lot as it does currently without any mitigation.
Right. So what we typically look for with these types of basins is an area specific to capture an overflow. You can call it overflow spillway or whatever, but I would suggest there be a berm around part of that basin, most of it on the parking lot side, and if there was an overflow, it'd be directed towards the basins in the parking lot, again, to minimize the spread of that overflow into the parking lot in the event it would have happened. Okay. And that would be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'll turn to commissioners. Commissioner Cavagnaro, Commissioner Foley, Commissioner Wagner.
Yeah, I think I understood your comments. I was going to bring up the same thing we don't have, but I mean, isn't there normally an actual overflow feature where the water goes into a drain, into a storm sewer?
In many cases, but not in all cases. In this case, the drains that it would go to are in the parking lot. So that's why I'm suggesting they create a little berm around most of the basin with an opening towards those basins in the parking lot, in that berm, so the water will go towards those basins. So it'd be kind of on the northeast side of the basin, if you will.
Okay. Right. So you're just looking for like a designated overflow location to concentrate it towards the catch basin as opposed to spreading out into the parking lot. You don't need like an outlet structure with a structure in a pipe. You just want to just designate
No, it's too shallow to have an outlet structure.
Right. It's just like a weird to go to a designated spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we brought up the idea of a 100-year flood, but things are changing now. 100 years seems to be happening more often. I'm wondering if we shouldn't ask for a little more capacity in that.
Well, I mean, that's our standard right now is a 100-year flood. We don't have any good data to specify something more than that. We're looking at currently what the rainfall data is showing. The rainfall data has changed, and it's been updated by USGS and other entities. So we're looking at updating our rainfall data that we're using for these analysis.
Okay. On drawing number C3, it was a little clearer when you projected. Oh, I don't mean C3, I'm sorry.
C2 maybe? Or
Well, C4, several of the drawings actually show parking spaces in the area, and then on drawing C2, you're showing some truck lanes. So the parking spaces are going to be covered over by the coating you're putting on there?
Yes, sir. Yeah, those are going to be covered by the seal coating, basically blacked out. So sheet C2, that shows the proposed layout, how it's going to look at the completion of the job. The reason that it looks different on the other sheets is because in the other sheets, just for clarity of the drainage features and the grading features, we turned off the proposed pavement markings on those sheets. So you're not seeing those, but the layout plan depicts the proposed conditions. So yeah, you're just going to have the 3 lanes for the trucks. That's the only striping that's going to be out there.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Yep. Of course.
Okay, Commissioner Dexter,
No comments.
Commissioner LeBlanc,
Thank you. No comment.
Commissioner Carey.
No comments.
Okay, I got a few things. Staff already cleared up my question on impervious surface. To my count, I believe you're taking 6 trees out, you're only replacing 3, and I'm counting the 3 trees that you said were dead over there.
That's correct, yeah. So we're removing 3 trees in the parking lot, and we're replacing those with 3 parking lot trees. But yes, we're also removing 3 dead trees, basically at the border of the lawn area and the parking lot area at the southwest corner there, yeah.
Yeah, the 3 dead trees, was there a purpose in the previous, whenever those trees were,
They're probably a landscape plan for the previous landscaping plan.
okay. Is that something we should
We
look
could
at it,
certainly
maybe?
look for them to reinstall 3 where they take out the dead ones to put in 3 more, sure.
Are you amicable to that? Replace the dead trees that you say you're removing.
Hi, my name's John Radowski. I work for Haxiom. Yes, the 3 dead trees that he's referring to taking out in the corner of the parking lot will be replaced with maples.
Well, they want to see 3 more, because we're...
Do you want to see 3 more in addition to the 3 dead? Okay, that's not a problem.
And they don't necessarily have to be maples. If you wanted to put something that's a little bit more decorative or something, that's fine too. Maples, you get a hell of a lot of leaves. If you want to put
Flowering pears, do you have a size that you're
Right.
recommending? What would you like to see, sir?
just any, if you got a flowering tree or whatever. Kevin.
Flowering pears, good?
Okay. Okay.
They're less maintenance?
Yeah. I see a building that is supposed to be removed on the plan.
Building that's supposed to be-
Are there provisions for the removal of that?
There's no,
And speaking with Mr. Shepherd, he told me it would be gone by the end of the year. Is that correct?
It's just that little
Kip.
annex where the truck's in the back.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's acknowledging
Fair
that.
enough. Outdoor storage, Michelle, what's the requirements?
Yeah, it's just that it's screened from the public way. I guess my question is, are you leaving anything on the western side, or is it all being relocated to the eastern side of the outdoor storage blocked area? The area you have of outdoor storage of all the
Fuel
product,
cells?
are you relocating that all onto the east side?
so
When-
there's 11 units that are going to be stored onto the east side property on a temporary basis until the clients have the property ready to
And then they'll be leaving the
receive
site?
those, and then they'll be removed.
Okay. So it's only on the eastern side temporarily, which is, you can see it today if you go out there today.
Okay, but that's not something they need permanent outdoor storage? No? Okay, fair enough. I'm just wondering if this parking lot modification requires any EV charging stations.
I don't think it does, because your requirement is when you're rebuilding and you have 50 spaces, so I don't think you fall under the requirement for that.
Fair enough. And what are the hours of your operation? Are you 24/7 or?
We are.
Okay. So the new lights will be on 24/7, but I don't think,
The 3 new pole lights that are going in the parking lot along the radius of the new entrance.
yep,
We lost the entrance on the east side of the parking lot because of the new ball field for Doug Nation. So this has given us a new access into the plant, which
Right.
we lost recently. So the modifications that we're asking to do for the truck well entrance, in addition to the entrance to the plant, will facilitate the traffic pattern that we don't have now. We lost it.
okay. Okay. I don't believe I have any other questions or concerns. Commissioners, staff, anything? Okay. So, yeah, and, yeah, since this was publicly noticed, I'm just wondering if there is anybody from the public who has any concerns that they would like to voice, I'd give them the opportunity to speak up now or forever hold your peace. I almost see one getting up, but, oh,
For the record, John Halzak, Cody Circle. It's a busy agenda tonight. I'm just curious, like, for example, in August of '21, we had a series of nominal 25-year storms, kind of just 2-3 days apart type of thing. In that case, would this parking lot overflow to the Stoughton Brook? Because Stoughton Brook is continental waters of the United States, and so you know, that would involve Army Corps of Engineers. Just curious where the water would go if it overtopped the system here.
okay. Yeah, once he, well, give him a second to just step away, sign his name and step away. Okay.
So currently,
And to the microphone, if you could, 3 to 6 inches from the microphone works best.
currently where the 90-degree angle for the new entrance to the lot is, everything drains to the parking lot right now.
Yeah.
With the retention area that we're putting in, it's going to make the water recede and permeate at a slower rate. So we're going to decrease the amount of water going into the parking lot currently with the 2 drains that are there. We're not adding any drains, we're not taking away any drains. We're repairing drains that are there. And when the water all goes into the parking lot now, we're going to slow it down. We're actually decreasing the amount of water that's going into the parking lot with that retention area. Is that a correct statement?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I believe his question was, say we get a larger than 100-year storm, where would the overflowing water go? Would it go to Stratton Brook, or do you know where the?
It would go to the same place it goes to right now in the parking lot. This drain goes to the same place. None of that's changed. With that being said, we are decreasing the amount of flow of water with that retention area because we're slowing it down, and those numbers are decreased by what percentage? We had those numbers on the wetland.
Yeah, I can pull them up.
Would you like to see those?
If
Right now, everything close to the parking lot, we're not putting in any new drains or decreasing any drains that we have. We're slowing the amount of water going into the parking lot with that retention area that's being shown there that Mr. Doolittle was talking about before.
Okay, and if I could, just for a minute, cut in and go to our town engineer and ask him, does this water, and what I thought I had heard was some of it drains out into the main drain in maybe Governor's Highway, is that correct?
Right, so what they said was the drains closer to the building are connected to Governor's Highway. The drains in the existing parking lot, which this new driveway will drain to, go to the south. They do not go to Governor's Highway. And they do not go to Stoughton's Brook. Stoughton's Brook is north of this entire site.
Okay,
So they go south through a series of fields and channels and eventually end up in another water course far south of this site.
The sod farm, I believe, adjacent to the
Yes, they
property
go-
is
they
where
go
the water
through-
goes in that retention area
Right.
from the parking lot.
okay,
Several other agricultural fields, yes.
If anything, we're gonna decrease the water that's going to the sod farm retention area. That's what's gonna happen because of that retention pond.
okay. Thank you. Commissioners, anything else? Okay, thank you. Now, we have this item as part of our new business, so it can be acted on at this time if the commission is ready to do that, or we can just have it sit and act on it at a future meeting. Commissioner Wagner?
I move we approve application 223233P, High Axiom Site Plan. And we have a standard conditions 1 through 11. Condition 3 says this application is subject to conditions of approval of the Inland Wetlands Agency Conservation Commission, including bonds in the amount of $5,000 to To ensure compliance with the erosion and sediment control measures, $5,000 to ensure establishment of a stormwater system. And then I think the one thing that we would add to the standard conditions is to replace the dead trees. And I guess Commissioner Dexter would like to add, so we're going to replace 3 dead trees with, I guess I don't say what with. We were talking about
Commissioner,
flower.
12 with a,
3 2.5-inch caliper Bradford pear trees. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
couldn't hear too well, but, okay, thank you. And that would be number 12?
I accept that one, and then Commissioner Dexter, I didn't understand what you said.
I'd like to add another condition of approval, is to create the overflow spillway so that the excess retention basin water does flow to the parking lot drains. We talked about it, but I don't think it was a condition.
Well, it could be addressed as accepting the town engineer's comments of September 27th.
Well, Chair, we can do it that way, too.
Okay.
I didn't see that condition on here. Okay, yeah, okay,
Okay, so does that complete your motion?
yes, it does.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Our next item of business is application 22-33P, psychic readings by Lisa. That's a different page here.
In the back of your report should be,
Yep.
yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve application 22-33P, psychic readings by Lisa. There are 7 standard approval conditions. Number 4, we are amending the hours of operation. We are now stating them as Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.,
Monday through Saturday.
and then Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I just said it the same way but different. So Monday through Saturday, yes.
Okay.
I just wrote it that way.
Okay.
And then number 5, a landscape bond in the amount of $1,000 is required, must be submitted prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the business if work is not completed.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussions, questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. I'll just note for the record, Commissioner Foley is recusing himself from this application. Okay, now we will address application 22-32P, Revolution's Bowling Outdoor Field Expansion. Okay, Michelle, is anything else? Just, this is,
No, I gave you approval conditions based on the public hearing last week, or 2 weeks ago. And also, you'll notice I did put a recommendation that you might want to add a time that the lights have to be out by. I think I left a blank on one of the
yep,
condition times.
okay.
Michelle, the original one in my packet talked about the deferring of EV charging units. Is that going to be part of the condition to?
Yes.
So we
I'm
should
sorry, yeah,
add
yeah,
that in,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I missed that one. Is that the only one I missed? Yeah, okay.
All right, I'll try this one. I move we approve application 22-32P, Revolution Special Exception Site Plan Modification. And there are standard conditions 1 through 5. There aren't any bonds or anything with that. Condition 6, food establishments must be in compliance with all public health code requirements. Health department must be consulted prior to the commencement of construction of any kitchen interior space and/or outdoor space to be used for food and beverage service. Number 7, the fire marshal's office and building department must be consulted and appropriate permits obtained for changes to the exterior of the building and temporary tents for special events. Number 8, activities that are permitted under this approval include 1, entertainment including music, 2, a patio for sales of food and beverages with maximum seating of 100, and 3, areas primarily dedicated to outdoor recreational activities. Number 9, hours of operation are limited to as early as 7 a.m. with a closing time for all outdoor. The outdoor will be 10, what did we say, 10:30 on all nights? Well, this reads 10 p.m. Sunday, 11 p.m. Monday through Wednesday, 12 a.m. Thursday through Saturday. Lighting shall be turned off by 1/2 hour after the closing time.
I think you have two different things. You have the activities, which are one thing that will be going on, and then the actual lit field is a separate time.
Yeah.
I think it was represented 10:30 when Commissioner Dexter asked Mr. Nation. 10:30 seemed to be the maximum hour.
Let me finish reading the motion because I think we need to get back to that and have a discussion. Okay. Number 10, an as-built of the field and new parking area shall be submitted to the planning and engineering for review. And number 11, considering the fact that the parking lot is not paved, we will defer the requirement for EV chargers as required by our, well, due to the seasonal global parking.
Okay.
Seasonal gravel parking. So back to, well, we need a second, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dexter,
Yes?
we have a motion. Would you like to
I'd
second?
like to second it, sure.
Okay,
That'd be great.
thank you. Questions, comments, discussion?
Let's clarify number 9.
I think our outdoor hours are accurate. It's just the outside field lighting shall be turned off. And they had said 10:30. If they're good with that and the commission is good with that, I'm fine with that.
So I guess that means that they would not
The
be
50
using the fields after 10:30.
Right, the 52-foot lights will be shut off at 10:30 at night. There still might be other
Patio uses.
incidental lighting.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. We are going in.
Bonds, right?
No, we got one more. The item 4, update from subcommittees.
Right, I gotta,
Oh, okay, I thought you meant executive session.
okay. Our next item on our agenda is receive update from P and Z subcommittees. Michelle, you want to take a shot at this? Or?
Sure. So all three subcommittees, we have three subcommittees that have been meeting, two residential, one related specifically to subdivisions, and one related to multifamily. And then the third subcommittee being the warehouse, looking at the commercial regulations. All committees have met several times. I guess what I'll do is I'll give a kind of a status where we are. I think with the residential subdivision, we've gone through and we've looked at open space subdivisions, and we've looked at some of the requirement changes that we're going to be suggesting, particularly related to somehow lot sizes are created, things like that. I think the biggest question the committee has, and one of the things that we're considering is, in light of the fact of how much available residential land there is along the Main Street corridor, whether or not open space subdivisions should be a requirement in Main Street, similar to what we do in other areas of town where we require the open space subdivision as the first shot, and then if the commission desires a conventional, you can go to the conventional. So we haven't written a regulation along those lines, but it has been suggested amongst the group that that might be a way of trying to do some farmland preservation through open space subdivisions in the Main Street area. So that was kind of a broad question to the commission. I think the other things related to subdivisions we've talked about are the interior lots. We've made some minor changes to some interior lots based on some of the concerns we've had. And I think the biggest thing we still really haven't concluded on how we're going to deal with is the whole idea of affordable housing within the subdivision context. Whether or not a certain percentage of units would have to be affordable, if there'd be some kind of program that would be a fee in lieu of. I think those are things we're still fleshing out a little bit. But I think the biggest question for this group tonight was really the one really related to the open space subdivisions along the Main Street corridor, and whether or not that's something that you want to have as a requirement. Do you want me just to kind of go through all three of them and then we have general discussion, or you want to handle them one at a time? I don't know, what's your pleasure? It's kind of hard for them to get too much into without having mapping and whatnot, but I'm just kind of doing a broad brush of what we've been working on.
Right. Well, just for the commission, does everybody understand what Michelle said about the open space subdivisions? Is that a direction that we want to go in for, like the A40 zone, which is the Main Street area? That's something that I would be more in favor of, which it would keep the bulk of the possible new open space subdivision away from Main Street, keeping the character of Main Street similar to what it is now, having those units set back if there were. There is a potential of, I believe, about 256 units to be added to the Main Street area, which is included. It's an excerpt in our plan of conservation and development now. So I think trying to keep Main Street as much similar to what it is now is an important thing. Michelle, Commissioner Dexter.
By allowing the open space subdivision, does that reduce the 256 liability on Main Street, or just makes it denser, more dense?
It makes it denser, further away from Main Street. And Michelle, if you want to.
Yeah, the only other thing that will, like the 256 goes back to their last plan of conservation development. They kind of did a build out. One of the things that has occurred is we have purchased some development rights along Main Street. Those take the pieces out of the puzzle, if you will. That does intersect some road patterns and whatnot, so that, you know, anything we can do along the preservation line that gets pieces out of development is certainly going to reduce the number of potential lots out there. But there's plenty of land that is developable out there. So this would, in return, reduce lot sizes, less infrastructure potentially, and then have open space.
One last thing, is there been any discussion about when you have money for preservation, that we're going after good land and not wetland? Quality and not, yeah. I mean, we don't really want to put our limited funds toward wetlands, floodplain area.
Right. Some of the properties, Michelle, do you want to get into our targeted properties?
Yeah, so you have two different things. You have your open space task force master plan that has targeted properties. You also have your agricultural commission that has a lot of similar properties targeted. The way it was set up with development rights is there's supposed to be criteria under which it's being reviewed and decisions made whether or not they're appropriate for development rights or not. One of the things is, you know, what its potential for development. Obviously, floodplain, we don't allow housing in floodplain, things like that. So there's a much less development potential in a floodplain area, 100-year floodplain area, than high and dry land. That is actually a town council function as to whether or not they purchase the development rights. But there's certainly something that, you know, through our planning efforts, I think through Jeff Folger's working with the Agricultural Commission and the Open Space Task Force, you know, we try to impress upon the pieces that are going to yield, what they're going to yield and whatnot. I spoke recently with someone from the Agricultural Commission and offered our services to help them hone down, you know, choices of properties and to come up with more criteria if that's what they'd like to do, because we do want to have it based on, you know, some good sound planning.
But you might want to also mention when we accept actual open space, there are criteria for how much of it can be wetlands and so forth.
Yeah, currently, I think we only allow 20% of it to be wetland of the open space that we accept. When we have an open space subdivision, 50% comes as open space, and 20% of that can be wetland. That's how that breaks down.
Okay. So, Commissioner Cavagnaro.
Yeah, thank you. I would just wanted to ask for clarification. With what we're putting forward for this, the exact setback requirement, what number would that be entirely? Because I just want to have that for clarification compared to what it is right now for the area that we're thinking of.
I'm not sure what you mean by setback requirement. You mean, currently, we're talking about taking something from being a conventional subdivision, in other words, you can just come in and subdivide it up based on the zoning regulations versus requiring it to be an open space subdivision. So in return, half of the land would come as open space, and then the rest of it would be turned into residential lots.
Okay.
So
That's a change.
yeah, setbacks isn't part of
The
this
setbacks isn't
particular
part of, that would be
discussion.
all part of the regulation for the open space lots.
All right, thank you.
But there's also, I think, a significant change here in that now the developer comes in with a conventional plan and asks if we would like to have it open space, and I think we're turning it around and saying it's got to be an open space, right? But they still have to come up with a conventional plan just to do the bookkeeping, right?
To determine the number of lots, that's correct.
Okay. And I believe going to open space subdivisions was the consensus of the committee. At that point, we talked about bringing it back to the full commission to make sure that everybody was still on board with that versus if the commission or the committee was going in the wrong direction. So at this point, we're just looking for a consensus that the committee is going in the correct direction at this time. Okay? Okay. I think we've got our consensus for that.
Okay. So I'll move on to the residential multifamily regulations. What we've done to that end, again, met a couple times. I put together a couple charts for the group related to current multifamily development types that we have in town, what kind of affordability we had or have in our regulations, what kind of units we've generated under the certain types of regulations. We've done things that looked at the number of bedroom counts that we have, how many 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms we have. So we've done a real lot of information gathering, and I've gotten any number of regulations from different communities and CROG and whatnot. I think we're at the point now where we've decided on a couple regulations that I'm going to start moving forward. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, group here. The
Draft regulations, of course.
Draft, yeah. So senior residence development, I think the appetite was to introduce senior residence developments back into the regulations with an affordability component. To that end, we've gone ahead and done a little analysis of what our acreage unit per acre has been in the existing ones, and I'll be bringing that back to the committee to help formulate some of the senior residence development regulations. We talked about our multifamily regulation, which is a 15-acre minimum, and the potential of reducing that down to some lesser amount, maybe a 5-acre, and maybe looking at a different unit type mix within that. Again, with all of our regulations, we're talking about as an affordability component, since we know we need to keep making things affordable. We talked about the assisted housing, which assisted housing is a little different than, that's what our Metro Realty, they build, where they get federal or state funds to build their housing, and it's a different kind of affordable housing as opposed to your Evergreen Walk, where they're doing affordable units that are being subsidized by the other units. So we're looking at that a little bit differently and how those might be considered differently. One of the things we're also exploring a little bit is the idea of lots with maybe duplexes, triplexes, or quadplexes on them, and what that might look like, you know, whether it's in a subdivision or a multifamily type. So we're trying to think a little bit outside of the box. I think we heard from our quad meeting the other night that school children is something that we have to be cognizant of. I think that shouldn't stop us from moving forward with creating regulations and continuing community development. But I think one of the things we've been hearing, and one of the things that I know I hear regularly, is the whole idea of senior housing. So I think the idea of introducing some more senior housing is not a bad idea either. So at this point, I've been tasked with coming back to the multifamily committee with some draft regulations along those lines. Does that sound pretty fair with what we're doing there? Okay. So stay tuned on that one. And then the last, okay, so I'm sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wagner?
I think at this point in time, and this point in history, the committee should be looking very closely at regulations regarding energy. I don't think we should be allowing natural gas into these facilities. I think we should be requiring that they have community solar. So I would encourage you to look at ways, and these things, you know, you go to air source heat pumps or ground source heat pumps, all make it actually more affordable to live in that particular kind of housing, and take advantage of new regulations and new state offerings to make this economically feasible.
Could I ask, Commissioner Wagner, is that something that the Energy Committee has been moving towards, or is that like your personal?
That's a personal opinion. The Energy Committee was reluctant to put in requirements, but I think that's kind of up to us what we want to do. Yeah.
Okay. And I haven't explored that part of our regulations or the state statutes to see if we have the authority to do that. Is that something that staff can do, possibly with
Exactly.
legal?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Steve. Okay,
In the last committee I'll report on, although I see another light, sorry.
oh, I'm sorry, Alan.
No, it's okay.
Like I said before, when I look over here, I see, like right now, I see 4 red lights, so I apologize if I skipped over you. Thank you.
No, you're good. I just want to make a quick comment on what Commissioner Wagner made. I'm not sure if there's other municipalities across the state that have done something similar to that to sort of try and put something into our regulations like that. I'm not sure if that's something that could, you know, be looked into to see not only how they went about it, but to see what they included, what they didn't include, and who they partnered with. So that's all. I just wanted to see if that's something we could look at for our next subcommittee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Please.
All right. So the last committee is the warehouse subcommittee. We've taken a very broad look at the industrial commercial regulations, starting with the use table, looking at uses and how they're permitted, making some suggested changes on things that should be by special exception versus site plan. We're going to be hearing a report on definitions at our next meeting. Commissioner Bernstein's tackling definitions for the different type of warehousing that we're trying to regulate. So we're going to be looking at that. I've taken a really broad brush look at the regulations and any of the issues that we seem to be caught up on related to the warehouse issue have kind of been put out onto the table. And the commission's kind of working its way through the parking requirements and the standards that may be needed on site. We're just getting to that part. We looked at traffic requirements and beefing up what we look for to come in with a traffic study. We did hire a landscape architect who has come and met with our board or the committee one time, and will be bringing back other information. Again, looking at buffering requirements, what's the best things that we should be looking for. You know, I think one of the things that really we lack in our regulations that he brought or is hoping to introduce is something related to topography of the land and how that may come into play with what we're trying to screen or buffer, whether it's noise, pollution, or visible buffers. So we had quite a bit of discussion on that. We're looking at some distance requirements for certain types of uses from residential zones. We're looking at potentially size requirements of structures. We're looking at potentially creating like a special use area within a certain distance from a residential zone that would have certain requirements of what could or couldn't occur in those things. So all these things are just kind of being fleshed out as ideas that we're moving forward. we're at the point now where we're really getting down into what kinds of requirements. We did ask our legal department related to the noise and to the pollution, so I should hopefully hear something back. We did have a little bit of discussion on that. So we're at the point now where I am just continuing to work on some updates. We'll bring them to the committee for some more review. But we're getting through them, but we're really getting into the parking requirements now, the design requirements of the site, and those kinds of things. And the landscaping buffering is kind of the tail end here that we're working on.
Does anybody have any questions? I see Alan's light on.
Awesome, thank you. I wanted to just highlight a couple regulations I mentioned around 6 or 7 months ago during a few public hearings. These regulations, by the way, come from towns in California that deal with an exorbitant amount of warehouses, and it's really meant to protect citizens, and I'm just curious if, this is something that we could consider. I wrote down the actual regulation very briefly here, but one of them is requiring air quality health assessments for warehouses with 125 truck trips a day at the very least. So if there's a warehouse that usually sees that, they would be required to have an air quality health assessment. And the other one is requiring acoustic sound studies, traffic engineer reports, and air quality health assessments for applications of warehouses of a certain size. I'm not sure what we'd want to make that size, for square footage. Those are just two I thought of would be great to include within our subcommittee. I'm not sure if they've been discussed. I just wanted to mention again, since I know I mentioned it in a public hearing around 6 months ago. But
Okay, Alan, would you have copies of those, or maybe you could forward the website with the specifics of that information to Michelle, and she can provide it to the commission, and we could move forward in reviewing it, and
yeah,
just
of course,
so we get as much accurate information as possible.
Yeah, I'll spend the next week trying to dig this all up, and because this was around 6 months ago. So once I find it, I'll forward it over to Michelle.
Perfect.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Any other, Commissioner Wagner?
Yeah, so it occurred to me that, within a certain distance of residential properties or residential zones, you could limit the number of truck bays in a facility, so that would lead you more towards manufacturing, where they do need some truck access, like we just saw with Doosan, but they don't need hundreds of truck bays, okay? So you might want to think about, within certain zones, how many truck bays are allowed in a facility.
Okay. Thank you. It's a good suggestion. Any other suggestions, questions, comments, commissioners? Hearing none. Did you have anything else on
No,
that, Michelle?
just for everybody's benefit, we'll just keep working on them. I think 2 out of the 3, we have another date set. We have to set a warehouse date, I think. But, my approach has been, at this point now, is to try to get some drafted regulations that we're working from. So that's where my goals are over the next month or 2. So.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Okay. Commissioner Cavagnaro.
Yeah, I was just curious. I'm not sure if is it possible for us to forfeit like a minute or 2 of our time to someone in the audience? I saw someone raising their hand. I'm not sure if we're allowed to do that. I just want to ask before we move on.
I have no issue with that tonight. If a member from the audience would like to give a little input.
Hi, John Howazak, Cody Circle.
A little closer, John. Thank you.
John Howazak, Cody Circle. Hey, I just wanted to add a thought. Just looking at South Windsor's plan of development, and we have a lot of industrial land that abuts various residential uses. It's been known in urban planning since at least the 90s, to my knowledge, that one can provide for a transition use. So if you have industrial here and you have some sort of residential function here, and in between what you want is a transition use. It could be a medical office building, it could be a daycare, it could be even a convenience store, something that transitions the use between the residential and the industrial type area. Perhaps that's too broad for the specific warehouse things you're looking at right now, but some night when you don't have 12 things on the agenda, maybe you guys could have a open discussion about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to follow up with that a little bit, it is something that many years ago was in the regulations to have less intensive uses along the bordering of the industrial, but at some point that was removed. And we thought about possibly putting that back in, but what would happen is we would now have a possible large number of non-conforming uses that would be in that area. So it's something we're looking at. It's under consideration. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Maybe from a legal standpoint, there could be a grandfathering clause as a way to mitigate the non-conformity. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing any. We will move on with our agenda. We're at bonds. I don't think so. We have till, what, 9:30? Right, well, bonds will be quick, I believe, and then I think we'll be in good shape. Okay, so we have bonds in front of us. Commissioner Cavagnaro?
Thank you. I'll start with IWA/CC bond. We have 19-03P, Chase, amount 2,000, reduction 2,000.
20,000.
Oh, 20,000, amount 20,000, reduction 20,000. Do you want me to just read through all of them and then approve them, or one at a time?
Per type, like Unitex can be on both of them, okay? So we have that one leaving a balance of 0?
Yes.
Okay. That was a motion. Do we have a
Second.
second? Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Next, we got 21-26P, Unitex parking lot, E&S, amount 15,000, reduction 15,000. And then another 21-26P, Unitex parking lot, stormwater, 20,000 amount, reduction of 20,000.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to reduce these bonds. Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Last one for this one, we have 11-38, Buckland Commons, E&S, amount is 5,000, reduction 5,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Awesome, I got landscape bonds, 19-28P, Aldi, amount 5,000, reduction 5,000.
Leaving a balance.
Oh, balance of 0.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Next up, 19-03P, Chase, amount 5,000, reduction 5,000, balance of 0.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Last one we got, 21-26P, Unitex parking lot, amount 5,000, reduction 5,000, a balance of 0.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Okay. Minutes, did anybody have any issues with that? If not, we can accept them by consensus. Agreed? I see a lot of nodding heads, that's good. We'll forego old business for now and I believe we are going to go into executive session for the discussion on the litigation for Talbot Lane. So at this time, I'm going to call a motion for that, and that will take us into adjournment. So could I have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion, we go into executive session.
Second.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Well, who's going to be in there?
Who are we inviting?
Who are we inviting for the executive session? Of course, it's the commissioners, town planner, town engineer, and the applicant, which is Vintage Lane 2. It's just a discussion. I don't believe,
Bob Urso and Brad Wayman
okay,
are available.
Bob Urso and Brad Wayman.
Right, guys.
So that are the participants in the executive session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So I'll ask everybody